All right, guys, good afternoon. We are on Unit 21, Session 3. Unit 21, Session 3. And we are talking about the obedience to the Messiah today. We're going to see Jesus call some of his disciples to follow after him. And so, Luke chapter 5 is where we get our passage for today. So, Luke 5. Um, and so Jesus has apparently already gathered some followers, and he's about to call Peter, which is a very significant part of the gospel accounts. As far as Peter's a big time character in the four gospels. He's a guy that is going to do great things for the Lord. He's a guy that's going to let the Lord down a lot. But a really interesting passage here. And so, Luke chapter 5, Jesus is teaching, and the crowds are getting way too much. And apparently, he's on the beach here, and they can't really see him. And so, he sees Peter and Andrew and some of these other men that are fishing, and he says, "Can I stand on your boat?" And it would have been an honor for these men to have a rabbi teach from their boat. And so they say, "Of course, come on up." Um, we're not sure exactly what this whole thing looked like, but probably Peter probably wasn't paying too much attention. I mean, he was probably cleaning his nets. I mean, they've been fishing all night, um, pretty discouraged because they hadn't caught anything. But before Jesus ever calls Peter and Andrew, they are part of this audience. They're part of this crowd that Jesus is teaching. And so the first thing we see is that Jesus teaches his disciples. Jesus teaches his disciples, and we, as the people of God, we are his disciples. We are followers of him. And we know every day that he teaches us. And before we're able to follow Jesus, we have to understand his message and understand who he is. And so prior to him calling us out, he teaches us about who he is. He reveals himself by his Holy Spirit. And in this moment, he is right here in front of Peter and Andrew, and he is revealing who he is. And then verses 8 through 10, we see that, ultimately what's happened here is they cast out their nets aside because Jesus told them to. And they were not expecting anything. And then they lift up the nets, and it's so heavy with all the fish in there that the nets break. And immediately Peter realizes that this is no ordinary rabbi. This is no ordinary man that has just called him. This man is powerful. This man is the King of Kings. I mean, he realizes it right there. He falls down before Jesus and he says, "Go away from me, Lord. I'm a sinful man." Now, Peter wanted Jesus, but he felt so overwhelmed by the holiness and the power of Jesus that he tells Jesus to go away. He says, "I'm not even worthy to be in your presence." And Jesus tells him not to be afraid. He says, "From now on, you'll be catching people." In other words, you're not gonna fish for fish. You're gonna go catch people, right? In other words, you're gonna tell them about my gospel message, right? It's gonna totally change their lives. In this, there's this cleansing act that happens when Jesus calls Peter here. Um, when Jesus calls us to himself, he cleanses us. He takes our old life, he washes us off, and he makes us new to follow him. And so a lot of people feel this reality that they are unworthy, and they're not worthy of the gospel, and that is absolutely true. None of us are worthy of it, but Jesus cleans us. Jesus cleans us up, and he makes us worthy, not because of anything that we do, but he covers us in the precious blood of his son, um, so that we can stand unashamed before God. And then lastly, it says that Jesus leads his disciples. In verse 11, after this whole encounter, it says they brought their boats to land, left everything, and followed him. They didn't worry about what would happen logistically with their money or their wealth, being as not much wealth really, but what they did for a living as fishermen. They didn't worry about that. They said, "There's a lot of important things in this world, but the most important thing for me is to follow Jesus." And Jesus took care of them. He followed these men followed Jesus for 3 years, and then continued to follow him after his death and resurrection. Um, but uh, but it's just a cool moment here where you kind of see through how he calls the disciples that he teaches his disciples, he cleanses his disciples, and then he leads his disciples. He walks with them so that they can see how they should walk out this life. So I hope this helps you as you prepare. Thank you guys for all you do, and we'll see y'all on Sunday. Thanks, y'all.